Thank you for listening to UK Cinema History, episode number 21, The Entertainer, directed by Tony Richardson and starring Laurence Olivier.
Hello and welcome to UK Cinema History. As usual, we're going to spend the first 15 minutes seeing who shows up before we get into it. Today's film, 1960's The Entertainer, directed by Tony Richardson, starring Laurence Olivier. Please stand by whilst I try and ping people. Hello, Les. Very good to see you, my friend. Have you seen this film?
Always good to talk to you. I have not seen the film, but I've heard very good things about it, and one, I like to hear what you have to say, and two, this is how I get films to see. To see. It's always great to discover a new one.
We always appreciate you here. Yeah, this one's actually free on YouTube if you don't mind Spanish subtitles. But
I don't mind.
But yeah, so you can actually watch this one for free. I got one of those back channel messages where somebody was like, "Are you sure you want to do this film? It only got like 70% on," and I can't remember whether it was Rotten Tomato or IMDb or Letterboxd or what have you. And I wanted to write back, yes, that makes me want to do it more, but I didn't. I was polite, but it's just it's like.
Well,
but I realize there are people out there who will not watch a film that doesn't get over 75% on whatever website they're using, because they just feel like they don't have enough time in their lives,
Well, but there's two things going on. Who are you going to believe? Your lying eyes, or what some third party said, what you like. And I've always felt like, what I don't care what people like to watch. It's sort of like you are the expert of what you like. The other thing I don't like is what I call the Helen Keller School of Film Criticism, which is where people have not either heard or seen the film, but yet have a very strong opinion of it. It happened like with West Side Story, the remake, and stuff like that.
Lot of that going around. We had an incident in a room. Not in this one, but and it might have been Understanding Movies. I can't remember, but where somebody was going off on pretty much a whole category of films that they hadn't seen. Based on the fact that the director of one of them's husband made a film once he didn't like. And I was like, and you're going to condemn like 20 films and never see them based on that. Hello, hi.
Hello. Martin Scorsese did that when he talked about superhero movies. A lot of people do that. A lot of people at the top of the industry do that. Everybody's got their own little, agendas and their own little favorites. It happens to everybody. It's not just some random schmo who does it. That's exactly how I feel about Scorsese when he talks about superhero movies, and other people who talk about other types of genres that they don't happen to respect because
I'm not going to defend him, but what he said was they didn't fill his definition of cinema. To which my response would be, you cranky old man, give me back my fucking ball. I'm sorry it fell in your yard, but it's still my ball. But I think the internet kind of freaked out over nothing.
Well, it's not.
when he
It's
said
not
that.
nothing. It's not. It's exactly what Les just said. It's the Helen Keller School of Criticism. Scorsese did not watch all of those movies.
No,
He
he
watched a
probably
few
watched
of them.
he probably watched half of that Captain America Winter Soldier film because he there was a scene that referenced one of his films in it, and that's probably what he was basing it on. I would guess.
I don't know what he watched, but I'm sure he didn't watch all of them. And more to the point, I would venture to say he didn't watch them with the open mind and open heart that he wants people to watch his films. Um, so that's, even if you see a film, if you don't really see it, then you're not really qualified to talk about it either. So, yeah, that is a problem. As for the ratings, I I'm going to I have a different view, which is I um, I think of a rating as providing a certain type of information, which I personally find extremely useful. But it's not the be all and end all. It's like I understand how Leonard Maltin rates movies, and so when he rates something 3.5 stars or 4 stars, I have a sense of what that means. It gives me an instant sense of something about the film. If he gives it 2.5 stars, that doesn't mean it's a bad film. It means that it doesn't have certain things that Maltin is looking for to give it 4 stars, but it doesn't mean it's a bad film. It could be
Well,
a very interesting
he
film.
famously gave Taxi Driver 2 stars,
Well,
and
obviously,
I don't
well,
know if
that
you ever watched the
he changed his
what's
mind.
the show
Uh,
the where they watch old B movies and make fun of them, the MK3 show, where they did the list. They did the list of really bad films that got better ratings from Leonard Maltin than Taxi Driver,
well,
and
that's
it was
that's
huge.
delightful, but you know, Maltin has rated tens of thousands of films. You, everybody's going to have something where he falls down on. The point is that you know, the vast majority of the time, I found those ratings very helpful. I'm also aware a 2.5 star film can be more interesting than a 4 star film. Um, that doesn't mean it's better, but it can be more interesting. Um, so
Yeah, that
the
and
ratings.
that goes to films like this too. When you take an average rating, this is a film that has several scenes that are deliberately making the audience very, very uncomfortable. You know, what modern day gets called triggered, so to speak, in inverse commas. And So when you take a poll of people who watch this film, there are people who are just like, no, it made me uncomfortable. I don't like it, and they're going to rate it very, very lowly, automatically.
Well, yeah, I think this film is what I would call highly problematic, and yeah, this is a good example of something where ratings become uh, complicated. But again, I understand. I always think of Leonard Maltin's rating system, and from that perspective, it just the rating doesn't encompass every aspect of a film. It's basically it's rating certain values of it, and it's so I find ratings to be extremely helpful tool. And I remember last week we were talking about um, well, not last week, a few days ago, we were talking about One Eye Jacks, and I mentioned that it got 7.1 on IMDb, and I said I thought that was about right. I'm thinking of, again, the Malton type of ratings, and you said C, what is that, like a C minus? No, that's not the way to think about it. It's not a C minus. That's it's just, if I find it, I find it to be very helpful as a tool, not a definitive tool, but as a quick hand guide for thinking about films. And so, anyway, that's just me.
And I think a good critic doesn't necessarily give the same star rating you would do, but if you read his review, you have an excellent idea if you want to see the film or not, regardless of what his opinion is.
Of course, that's why we spend 2 to 3 hours in this room talking about a movie instead of saying, I give it this many stars and it's a 10-minute room. So, yeah, absolutely.
And the other kind of criticism I despise is when someone has some inside knowledge of how hard it was to make a film, so they assume it's going to be pretty crappy, or someone spends Elaine May spends um, a fortune on making a film that where the money doesn't show up on the screen. Like the sand dunes in Ishtar, right? She
Ishtar.
had it's a famous one, and I watched the film and I checked it out. I paid the same price for the movie as for a movie that came out for 1/10 the price, and it's not my issue how much it costs to make the movie. Either way, um, it's just
Ironically,
if it
though,
worth my time.
Ishtar has made a profit now. I think it was as of 2016, it broken even. So, and the movie that we're discussing today, still to this day, has yet to have made a profit. So, if that tells
One
you
thing I would
anything about.
the interesting thing about Ishtar is Gary Larson. You guys know the comic strip Far Side,
Sure.
and so they have the video. He has a video store in hell, and it has all Ishtar is the only thing to watch. And then years later, he saw Ishtar on a plane, and he gave an apology. He said it's not a bad movie. It's not the best movie, but you know. And again, Helen Keller, film criticism, the worst. And the second worst is just saying, "Oh, I don't like Waterworld because they spent too much money." That again, I think the producers have a beef, but the guy that's buying the tickets should look at the ticket price and then ignore what it costs to make.
Well, in June, we're actually going to be doing a month dedicated to David Putnam, and Ishtar is actually going to come up because he took over Columbia Pictures right at the same time that Ishtar was finishing, and basically before that film was released, trashed it in the media, and, you know, kind of almost ensuring that it was going to be a disaster just to make the guy that he was replacing look worse. And that had a lot to do with how badly it did. Because I've seen Ishtar. I don't think it's very funny. I just don't think how someone pronounces schlep is uh, 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 a funny scene or what have you. But I can tell you that there are hundreds and hundreds of films that came out that year that were worse than Ishtar that made a lot more money than it did. So a lot of it doesn't have
Yeah,
to do with what's on screen; it has to do with how it's handled in the press and what have you. And Warren Beatty was
but
also the fault for that. He wouldn't allow press screenings for it, and he was very snobbish with the critics, and so yeah, it didn't get good word of mouth.
and he
Well,
was
it's
playing against type, and they were playing against type, and I think they also gave it. It wasn't as good of a movie you would expect from the stars.
Well, it's four.
Well,
Expectations are
It's
too high.
it's 4:16, so we should get started on the
okay.
movie we chose for today.
Okay, and I want to welcome Boo to the stage. He has a room on Mondays and Wednesdays that does movie trivia. To kind of get our plugs out of the way. Feel free to leave a link to your room in the chat there, Boo.
Thank you very much for that plug. Cheers, Eric.
Cheers and thanks for coming. Okay, so well, I was gonna do a once around the room, but this we didn't get a very big turnout this time. So, hi, I know you found the film problematic, but your overall first impressions of the film, and then I'm gonna kind of put it into the history of British film and the British of the kitchen sink drama.
Les was here before me. Les, would you like to go first?
Yes, I would. I would like to hear what Hi has to say since I haven't seen the film.
Oh, I didn't realize you hadn't seen it. Okay, then I'll go first. Sure.
Les
So,
is Les is just a permanent part of this panel. It has nothing to do with whether he's seen the film or not. He just, Les is welcome here as long as his health and his internet will allow him to be.
so uh, I, 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 I mean, I'll go first under the circumstances. Um, because I'm a little grumpy. If we had a bigger room, I would not go first. But as it is, so I mean, I think it's a really interesting film. Um, the This was during a kind of a new wave period, like we were talking about One Eye Jacks, which is actually the same period, um, where there's this transition from old Hollywood to new Hollywood, and also in the UK from old theater to new theater. And John Osborne wrote Look Back in Anger, which is kind of a defining piece for this new realistic type of um, uh, what they call kitchen sink dramas, where people are living, they're struggling financially, and they're kind of miserable. And it's not the kind of, rosy cheeked, optimistic type of things that films uh, often delivered in the past. And the Olivier felt that he was being kind of pigeonholed, with Shakespeare and with classic roles. And he was concerned that he was losing his relevance as an actor. And so he wanted to get involved in this movement. And he actually asked John Osborne to write this play for him, for him to star in. And so this is not just they were casting around and chose Olivier. Olivier requested that this be created, and Osborne wrote it. First, it was done on stage, and it was a tremendous success on stage. And then the film was made, and as Eric mentioned, didn't do so well at all uh, at the box office as a film, which I'll talk a little about my guesses. But it was a really important role for Olivier. He calls it his favorite film performance, and it's something that to this until his dying day he really cherished, and it was he felt it was a turning point in his career. As a result of that play and that movie, he became one of the leaders of his new movement, even though he was known for doing all this classic Shakespeare work. And then, he took over the National Theater, and he became a part of this new movement, even though he's not, he wasn't a teenager, but he was, this role helped make him relevant for remaining decades of his life. And so it's significant in that way. Of course, it's a mind-blowing performance. It's riveting, mesmerizing. You can't take your eyes off him anytime he's doing his stuff. He's amazing. Um, and I don't have any problems with Olivier. So what is my gripe? As usual, I have problems with the script. Um, One of the things that I have an issue with is I feel it's like a self-hating story, because it's it's written by someone who works in theater and film, and it's a story about how horrible people working on the stage are. And it's just not, I don't think it's real. It's not, it fails to represent the love of performance, the love of being on stage, connecting with an audience, acting. The reason that the that Archie doesn't leave, doesn't stop, is because he it's not that he can't change. I would say, and this is obviously, I could be it could be argued very much the other direction. My feeling is, it's not that he can't change, like Colonel Blimp, which there's clear parallels to that movie. It's that he was born to perform. That's what he is. That's who he is. If he took that hotel job, he would be killing his true self. And the fact that he would rather go to jail or risk going to jail than be a hotel clerk, I think is noble, in a kind of a Don Quixote type of way. But the film doesn't give him any credit for his refusal to give up art, um, to give up who he is, his identity as a performer. And the thing about his father, um, he gets his father to go on stage, and his father dies of a heart attack. I thought that was the most utterly ridiculous, phony piece of garbage. In fact, Olivier himself had a period when he was feeling very sick, but he had a job to do, and he went on set. And I saw this in an interview. He said every day he got better, not because the illness abated, but because his doing the work, the acting, it filled him with this energy, and that healed him. And that's the truth. His father would not have died from going on stage. His father would have added years to his life, my feeling. So I think there's a fundamental dishonesty to this film. And speaking of dishonesty, one of the things we're supposed to be angry at Archie about, is that he seduces a younger woman. First of all, his wife is a harpy. I mean, she's a nightmare. He should have left her long, long, long ago. She's just, that is a horrible relationship. It's not helping either of them. They should have split a long time ago. But in terms of his being interested in a younger woman, good for him. He wasn't torturing her. He wasn't holding a gun to her head. She and I mean, if she got number two in a beauty pageant, and by the way, they auditioned 500 actresses to find the actress who played that part. That's how good looking she was. So if he managed to seduce her and fill her with love, good for him. And in real
And who
life,
she
Olivier,
coincidentally was, and she was coincidentally dating Harry Saltzman, the producer of the film at the time. So
oh, I love how
that might, but
incestuous it is. And of course, Olivier,
may have helped. That may have helped.
as that's great. That's what I'm saying. How hypocritical this film is. You've got like some of the things that it's criticizing happening in real life, and as Eric pointed out in his chat bubble promoting this room, Olivier ended up marrying Joan Plowright, who is 22 years younger than he is. So where does this movie get off criticizing Archie for doing what then Olivier did in real life? And by the way, the guy who plays Olivier's father is only a year older than Olivier. So I mean,
Friend of the show, Roger Livesey, from, of course, The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, who
yeah, again,
made a
another,
living wearing old age makeup.
yeah, the Colonel Blimp, the Colonel Blimp connections are very strong in this film. So I I I just felt that for me it didn't age well. I understand at the time it was like, I kept thinking rebel without a cause, rebellion for rebellion's sake. But in terms of, and it's a metaphor for the decline of England, but in terms of the metaphor itself, in terms of, being about a stage performer, I just didn't. I I felt it was fundamentally dishonest and fundamentally disrespectful to people who make their lives in the arts, and it doesn't give them credit for the passion that drives them, the passion that makes them live sometimes impoverished lives because they love doing it, because that's what they were born for. And the thing he says about where Archie doesn't really connect with the audience, that to me is the most false thing of all. All performers, they live for that connection and that energy from the audience. I say this as someone who's attended thousands of stage shows over more than 15 years in New York, because I used to go to many, many shows and review them until COVID hit. And that's when I got on Clubhouse. But before then, I saw more shows than almost anybody in New York. And I know
It
I
sounds
have.
like you had a much fuller life than you do now.
Well, I'm working
You
currently
mentioned
working in
COVID and
TV.
then cough. Oh boy. and
Um,
I've got a sinus infection too. So
well, anyway, it's um, so I just felt it was uh, there was a lack of richness of spirit in this film. But Olivier's performance is. I'll say whenever grumpy thing. The woman who plays Olivier's wife, Brenda DeBanzi, who plays Phoebe, I thought she gave a terrible performance. I thought she gave a stage performance in a film. I thought she was over the top, overly loud, and just unpleasant beyond what was needed. She was in the original stage play, and I feel like she didn't really modulate for film. And I thought it was a terrible. I thought she stuck out for me.
I
Stuck out when you
agree with
saw the
you.
film.
She's playing to the back row when the camera is right in her face. You're
Exactly.
absolutely correct.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. I'll leave it there and go ahead and tear me to pieces now.
Well, first I wanted to check. Gugu, have you seen this film, or do you have any thoughts on Olivier?
No, unfortunately, I haven't seen the film. So I really can't weigh in on this, unfortunately. I did have
That's good.
one question though, just so I'm well prepared because last time I didn't get to see last time's film either. So can you just let me know what like next time's film is gonna be so I'm more on the ball, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. But if you go to our page, we've scheduled out all of our films through the middle of
Oh,
March. But next week will be Quadrophenia by The Who.
how do I have a look at this list? By the way.
Just go to the UK Cinema History Room. So click on that tiny little icon on the very, very top,
Uh huh.
and it'll show all the rooms that we have scheduled through the middle of March.
Right. Okay.
Also,
Okay.
keep an eye on voice notes because this was High's. These are both High's innovations. I do a voice note at the beginning of every week to give people a chance to see the film before the room.
I'm so sorry. So, how do I then see the list? So I've clicked on that icon on the top, and now how do I see the list of films that you're going to be reviewing?
You should see times, bubbles, gray bubbles with times in them,
Yeah.
days and times. If you tap on one of those gray bubbles, it'll show you the room that's scheduled to that day and time. So just tap on each bubble, and that way you get to see all the rooms that are scheduled for the next several weeks.
But yeah, for next week, it's Quadrophenia is the name of the film, and it stars Sting. Actually, Gordon Sumner is in it. So anyway, um, okay. Well, I'm gonna of course disagree with High because this is actually one of my favorite films of all time. But I disagree with him because I root for Archie Rice every time that I watch this film. The same way I root for James Dean in East of Eden. The same way I don't root for Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull. Uh, to me, Archie Rice, besides representing the decline of England post Empire and the beginning of the welfare state, also represents our own human failing. We've all cheated. We've all lied at some point. But this is a guy who just can't get away with a goddamn thing. And uh, he High is right that the speech that he gives about not connecting with the audience and being dead with the dead in the behind the eyes is disingenuous, but it is meant to be disingenuous because he's lying to his daughter and he's lying to himself because he wants to believe his life is more than this and it is not. And there is why and so there is where High and I have a fundamental disagreement about Archie Rice as a character. The fact he he cheats on his shrew of a wife with a woman 22 years younger than him. So for me, that would be if I were dating a 31-year-old. Um, uh, does not bother me in this film one bit. I do not for a minute say, "Gosh, this bastard, he deserves what what's coming for him." What I do, however, realize is that his past history is catching up with him, and his ability to get away with these shenanigans has made him too confident in these ploys. And when his father destroys his plans to get funding for his next production from the parents of the young girl played, by the way, by Shirley Ann Field, who we will see very very soon when we do Saturday night and Sunday morning, which is going to be the next in our series of kitchen sink drama films that we do. And she is so incredibly lovely. How could you not at least try? You know. So yeah, I don't see that element of the film, and I don't see it that as a hypocrisy at the center of it, because by setting it during the Suez Crisis, a time period in which England is so exposed to the world as being nowhere near the power that they used to be. You know, uh, uh, you can't help but feel sorry for England and sorry for Archie, despite both of them having kind of brought it on themselves and, having a disagreeable past. But at that time, I see the ending of this film as a very tragic ending. I agree with High about the that the Roger Libsey father character wanted to be on stage. That's shown throughout. You see that beautiful little scene where he does the don't break up the British Navy, and you see how alive he feels and how he wants to get back in the theater. And when everyone's warning him, "Oh, you're going to kill that old man," and it's just like, and Archie has a line that, "Well, then that's the way, but that would be the way he'd want to go," and that seems like one of those throwaway lines, like maybe Archie's lying to himself or what have you if you read it written on the page, but when you interpret it through Laurence Olivier's performance here, I I think he genuinely believes it. And I think he identifies uh, that same trait that he has. It's and I admit this film is not for everyone, and I always make the metaphor when I'm talking about films like this of films being like drugs. That is to say, I got into films when I was a very very young man, and I started out like everyone else with Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Gremlins, and got a little bit, but I need a little bit more hardcore stuff. So then I scratched a little bit deeper, and that's when I got into things like the kitchen sink dramas, and then they weren't going to do it for me anymore, so I had to scratch a little bit deeper, and that's it. And there's where I ended up uh, watching those Scandinavian films, and then before know it, I was going to 7 hour long Tarkovsky film festivals. And this film I kind of put in. It is a harder drug. It is not. It was not made as a piece of entertainment. Now I found it entertaining all the way through. And the reason I actually prefer this to the play that it was based on, um, and by the way, this was adapted um, with Nigel Neal. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, well, you're fine.
Oh, okay. Okay. I went to go check my notes, and sometimes it mutes me without my knowing it when I do that. So just let me know if that happens. I forgot Nigel Neal's name. And we all know Nigel Neal on this show because, of course, he was the creator of Quartermass and the three quartermass films in the BBC series and the BBC version of 1984. But I think he did a very good job taking a very theatrical play and making it into a film that doesn't, to me, even in those spots where you have the long monologues, feel like a stage play. The original stage play is you have basically 13 scenes, half of which are set in their living room where they're discussing what's going on in the outside world, and the other half are scenes from Archie's musical comedy show that kind of comment on what they're talking about and kind of don't. And so, for instance, um, the affair that Archie has is discussed in the room. We don't get to see it. Nigel Neal wrote those scenes in, so we're actually seeing the affair. Roger lives going to see the parents. We don't get to see it. It's discussed after the fact. Whereas in the film, we actually get to see it. And to me, it actually makes the story more powerful because I'm actually following these characters through, and I'm actually getting more of a view of these people as characters. Hang on just a sec.
Well, while you're doing whatever you're doing, I'll mention the poster for the film is pretty hilarious. It's the shot of Olivier in bed with the model, and the text reads, "As the applause grew fainter, dot dot dot. As his spotlight grew dimmer, dot dot dot. His women were younger!" Exclamation point, which is hilarious.
Yeah, that was the American release poster because they knew it wouldn't do well, but it didn't do well in the UK either, and it's very interesting because Woodfall Films was originally started by Harry Saltzman, uh, uh, Tony Richardson, and John Osborne to adapt Look Back in Anger, and that's why they started the film production company. And the idea was to take these plays, and there was a series of novels, and there was this emerging what became known as kitchen sink, and I don't mind the phrase kitchen sink drama, but people like to call it social realism because kitchen sink drama is kind of an implication that everything takes a place around the kitchen sink. But I don't mind that. I don't think that I think that's a very good and apt way of describing these. And Harry Saltman's idea was that instead of having the middle class go see these works about the uh, working class, why don't we create works that the working class will go see? And of course, the exact same people went to go see the movie that went to go see the play, which was, of course, the middle class. And in Harry Saltman's phrase, the um, uh, the working class stayed home in droves. But they did have a big hit that year with the movie we're going to do next month, Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, uh, which was produced by Tony Richardson and directed by Carl Rice, and we'll get into what that film did differently that made it more of a financial hit. But I'm going to say right away, I like this film and what they did with the characters more than Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, even though I think they're both great films, because this film has a sophistication level to me of good Tennessee Williams, or uh, Elia Kazan's East of Eden uh, is an example, and that idea of you take these bastard characters and yet you somehow can make it so you can root for them, and that's what I absolutely love about this film, and I loved about a film that we already did, Lindsay Anderson's This Sporting Life. But the other thing is, of course, in terms of the cinematography, the capturing of those bleak landscapes. This was shot mostly actually in studio, but the exteriors were shot in Morecambe, which is a way up north seaside town on the Irish Sea, at which they didn't actually have to dress it down at all to make it look like a deserted town, because by 1960, when they were shooting this, that's basically what it was. And it really, and we're going to talk a lot about this when we talk about Quadrophenia, because of course most of that takes place in Brighton, which is a south side seaside resort town. But the death of the seaside resort town and what that says about England, and the death of these holiday camps, and that whole entire uh, uh, working class striving towards middle class lifestyle that was taking place in England at the time is, I think, captured not only in the characters, not only in the dialogue, but in the way that the film is photographed. But the scene that really always hits me, and I'm probably going to get a lump in my throat just talking about it, is the scene that Hai was referring to earlier. Because part of Olivier's monologue, which almost half of that scene, Olivier is acting with his back to the camera, and yet it's still delivered so powerfully. I can't imagine a star today creating his own vehicle and having somebody write a play for him, and then allowing himself to be filmed from the back during the biggest scene in the film that Olivier did. But the part where he's talking about when he was in Canada and he crossed the border and saw a large uh, woman singing gospel, and how she would how if he could have just created one thing in his life that was as beautiful as what was coming out of this woman's mouth, then it all would have been worth it. And then his son comes in to say that his youngest son Mick had been shot during the prison transfer, which one of the flaws I think of the film is that they don't explain how in the Suez Crisis this was happening all the time, where parents were getting their hopes up because their kids were being taken prisoner of war, and then the Egyptians were getting them to the prisoner exchange, and then they would shoot them. And so people were arranging parades for these people to, well, because they're coming home, and those parades would then become funeral parades. And this was so, and I think the reason the film didn't explain that was because, of course, this was only 4 years later, and it was still fresh in the British minds that it didn't need that kind of an explanation. Well, of course, this many years later, and this many crises later, Suez has kind of faded from our memories, and so we just don't have that historical context. And Archie staggers after finding that out, and then begins bellowing in his best American accent that he can come up with, a gospel tune, and it's gorgeously done, and it's beautifully shot, and Olivier is perfect by being awful, because of course that's the tragedy of Archie Rice, is he's born to perform, he doesn't know how to do anything else, it's in his blood, and he is no good at it, absolutely no good at it. He is like that podcaster who has 1,000 podcasts out there and 5 listeners, you know, because that is his passion and that is his life. But then, and you're like, oh my God, I got to give this guy a chance. And then you do, and it's just unlistenable. His jokes aren't funny, and um, to me, that's actually what makes the film great, because to me, it's a layer of sophistication. Um, the But the fact is, I don't think the film is trying to say that his family is right that he killed his father. I think the film is trying to say that Archie's done so many things that they might as well blame that one on him as well. But anyway, um, that's the historical context to me. It is interesting looking at the history of Woodfall Films, because they had 2 big hits. They had Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, which starred Albert Finney, whose first film this was. And then, of course, they had Tom Jones, which won the Oscar for Best Picture and won Tony Richardson a Best Director award, and was a big international hit. But by that time, Harry Saltzman had actually dropped out because he was tired of losing money on all these critically well-regarded films that nobody went to see, and he instead bought a bunch of novels. I don't know. Ian Fleming wrote about somebody named James Bond, and Harry Saltzman. I guess he made like 15 or 20 films about this James Bond character, and apparently those were pretty financially successful. But yeah, those are my opening thoughts anyway.
I'll throw in another little data point. In 1957, Olivier turned down a Hollywood offer of $250,000 for a movie. Instead of making that, he took on the role of Archie Rice, for which he was paid 45 pounds sterling per week. So that is a career, that's a career move that Olivier
Well,
made.
he had points. Laurence Olivier made about $50,000 or 50,000 pounds from this. Tony Richardson, Harry Saltzman, John Osborne all made 5,000 pounds, and Nigel Neal claims that Tony Richardson died owing him his money for the two screenplays he wrote. So I want
And
to welcome Hillary to the stage.
yeah, hi Hillary. Let me just one other data point involving money. So Olivia said his performance was based on music hall comedian Max Miller, aka Richiki Chappie. Miller was the highest paid variety show performer of his time, 1,500 pounds sterling per week, plus a percentage of the box office. Miller never, it was based on someone who is actually making a very healthy living at it. So I just wanted to mention those things. Oh, and one other thing, Laurence Olivier's name was misspelled in the credits. Lawrence was Lawrence. I don't know how that slipped by, but interesting.
There is a story. There is a story behind that, but in the English edition, it wasn't. They recut the American credits. The credits also claim it's introducing Joan Plowright, but if you are a follower of this particular clubhouse room, you know that cannot possibly be true because, of course, we discussed in great detail 1957's Time Without Pity with Michael Redgrave, Joan Plowright, and Peter Cushing, directed by very good friend of UK Cinema History Clubhouse, Joseph Losey, and because of course it was his first film under his own name after he got blacklisted from Hollywood. So yeah, the American credits were messed up in more ways than one.
Indeed. So, Hillary, so lovely to see you here. If you want to say anything, we would love to hear from you.
Hi. I'm sorry I'm late. I fell asleep, just woke up, and I was like, oh no, and got on as quick as I could. So I'm here.
Well, that's the important part is that you're here and well rested.
Which was desperately needed. I started a new volunteer position at a museum because y'all know how I feel about history and stuff, and yeah, so I just have been burning the candle at both ends. And so, yeah, I needed a little nap, and I am well rested, and I am glad to be here because I love this room and I love the conversations in this room. So, and I love this movie.
Aww.
Oh, good.
So,
Oh, please
Could I
Tom,
ask?
tell us your
Tom,
thoughts about the movie.
Oh, could I ask her just one quick question? Just what was the name of what's the type of museum
Well, I actually found this
you're
museum. Okay, so there's a I like to do geocaching. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that or not, but I like geocaching, and there's a thing called Adventure Lab. It's an app you can download, and you actually go to locations on a map, and you find the answers to questions they ask about certain places around the world. So one of the places happened to be not far from where I lived. I go to this little town of Tomball all the time. I've never knew this place existed. So it's this it's the very first place that they found oil in the area. And it's the home. There's a little time. It's the home of the man who lived on the property from the 1800s. The very first, the very oldest log cabin in Texas. The original log cabin. There's the school, a Oilers, oil drillers' home, like their little dormitories that they had. A really old 1800s church, Lutheran church, and a fellowship hall, and it's everything has been restored back to its original the way it looked and everything, and it's just a fascinating place. The guy that developed and built the guy that built the place, the architect, wanted to use one long. He would use these huge, tall, like redwood like trees, um, and he would do the planks in the home are all one, like just one long tree. Like there's no like joints in them, no nothing. It's just like the plank itself goes the entire length of the house. It's so cool. And so I found it doing this Adventure Lab thing, and I saw a little notice thing on the bulletin that said, we're looking for volunteers for WCH, and I was like, I'll check it out. And I wanted to volunteer because there's so many places there that are roped off that you cannot go into. I'm like, I wonder if volunteers could go in there. So I volunteered. I sent in my resume, and they're like, "We need you. We love you. We want you so bad. Please come."
And can they? And
Yeah, yep. And
can
actually,
you?
I am working on one of the boards that is restoring the original cotton gin. So I'm actually in there with hammer, wooden nails, wooden square nails and hammer or mallet actually, and actually helping to restore back to its original condition, which is for me fascinating. For anyone else, it probably sounds boring as hell, but to me, it's just very cool to learn how to do all that stuff the way it
Well,
was
you
originally
just
done.
think of all the hands that have touched it,
Oh yeah,
over so many years. I mean that cotton gin probably goes back to the War of 1812, or you know, um, when did Eli Whitney invent the cotton gin? I'll have to look it up.
I
But
think it.
Turn of the century.
Now I'm going to be singing 1814. We took a little trip for the rest of the day.
so
Does
so
anyone else
It
remember
it
that
it
song?
made
tell us your thoughts on the Entertainer. I'm just going to sum up my thoughts as this has always been one of my favorites, and I'm going to sum up High's thoughts as High being a poopy head. No, I'm joking. No, as High found it more problematic, and did thought that it was
It doesn't matter what I
overly
thought.
critical
Let
of the
Hillary talk.
characters.
Let Hillary talk.
So I love music, and I love well piano especially, but I love stories told through music. And this was one of those things that you don't even have to watch. You can literally listen to on tape the entire thing and get almost the same experience. Uh, I don't know. I loved it. I love the original. Um, and I like the rewrite. So, but for me, it just captures a moment in time, and that's beautiful because movies don't seem to do that anymore.
Well, as I have been stressing, we're going to be doing one of these a month, of these let's that pre-cinema kitchen sink drama films per month, because I kind of want to space it out, because if you watch too many of them back to back, you're gonna like start longing for a fucking razor, because they're all so kind of depressing. But I think, and this isn't to disparage anybody else on Clubhouse, but I was in a room on Monday where that they were discussing anatomy of a fall, and um,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I missed that.
There
Which
were
house was that?
it was Justine Bateman. I've left her
Oh,
this.
okay,
I'm
never
not
mind.
going back.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going back anymore. And uh, and just very interesting to me because Anatomy of a Fall is to me kind of it's a good film and I liked it a lot, but it's a very conventional thriller, and yet there were a lot of complaints, including from Justine, that the film just dealt too much with problematic material and made the viewers feel uncomfortable. And I thought to myself, well, what would she make of a film like this, which is basically begging for the audience to feel uncomfortable, and is driving the stress level up from scene to scene to scene to scene. And uh, then the reason I decided I'm never going back, and I unfriended her on Clubhouse, and I deleted the room. I'm not even following her on Twitter anymore, is because of course I spent 2.5 hours watching this film. I was like, I rather like this and what have you, only to come into her room and be told that she thought the movie I just watched was shit.
I don't go in her room because it's one long diatribe that she continues to do, and she doesn't allow anyone else to speak on anything. And
Well, she
that
does. She
bothers
does
me.
does the roundtable, but the other thing is I find interesting. She's doing a book on Tarkovsky next week, and I don't know if she understands the hypocrisy of this because Tarkovsky is all about making the audience feel as uncomfortable as possible for hours and hours on end. And I to me, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. But and I'm gonna end my rampage, and I'm sorry that you all had to be a witness to this, but I don't think a film like this would be made in Hollywood anymore with the way the test screenings are, because of course they would get all the test cards back saying, oh well, that scene where everybody got drunk and started yelling at each other made me feel uncomfortable, and the producer would have to say which scene, because of course that's all of them,
So
and
it wouldn't I don't think this film would be made, but I think this film with adjustments could be made. I will point you to Saltburn, which is not a film that is exactly made to comfort the audience, but Saltburn is brilliantly scripted and very well executed, and I think it's, as far as I know, a commercial success.
yeah, actually, I think it did pretty well too. I haven't looked at any, I don't follow box office numbers or whatever, but I mean, I think it's definitely doing well in streaming, you know, because all the streamers are carrying it. And generally, they don't if if a film isn't doing well. So yeah. And yeah, you're right. And there are several examples like that. Noah Baumbach is making films that are discomforting. Some of them aren't the biggest at the box office, but these types of films are being made. But I don't think this specific film would be made this way, with its rough edges and with its rough characters and with uh, but I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. What I am saying is I love that there's a period of film like this, which and the British happen to be the ones who did it, who made these types of films. Now it's a very short period. It really, it the British kitchen sink drama runs from Look Back in Anger in 1959 to Alfie in 1967, full stop. But then you have the films of Ken Loach today, which take a lot of their inspiration from the kitchen sink dramas. You have the Mike Lee's films, which take their
Can you explain
inspiration
to me what
from
exactly
it.
kitchen sink? Because I've read this several times recently, and I know what kitchen sink means. We're talking about like sales and stuff like that. You just throw everything in there. But what exactly is the definition of a kitchen sink drama?
I'm stalling because because I have so much that I want to siphon it down into a digestible nugget. But the kitchen sink school was originally invented by an art critic, a painting art critic named David Sylvester. And it was in 1954. There was a group of painters called the Beaux Arts Quartet, and they had been inspired by Italian neo-realist films to do those kind of depictions of English scenes and do things that were paintings about the working class. And a lot of them, of course, would take place around a kitchen table, and there was generally a kitchen sink in them. And so when these films started being made, depicting the same kind of people and the same kind of milieus, they started calling them kitchen sink dramas. Now, but John Osborne had created in Look Back in Anger a milieu called the Angry Young Man play, which was basically a working class man shouting and yelling at everyone around him about how frustrating his life was. And it, I, uh, I I think that can kind of those are the two that came together for this film. Did that answer your question, Hill?
Not only did it answer it, it was nothing like what I thought. So I really appreciate you defining that for me, because it's absolutely, I did not. That's not something I knew. I love learning new stuff. That's what I love about this room, dude. I always leave with something.
Well, I appreciate that. That's the nicest thing I've heard all day, and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon over here, so that's probably going to be the winner. I will say, when we're doing the kitchen sink films, we're not going to do Look Back in Anger, and we're not going to do the next one, which was Room at the Top, which Jack Clayton directed, and very much a friend of the room, Freddie Francis, did the cinematography for. And the reason we're not going to do them is they just don't hold up as films to a point where I can defend making people watch them. Look Back in Anger. I've seen very good productions of it, and if you've got BritBox, Lindsay Anderson did a version of it with Malcolm McDowell
Seen the
for the
stage version.
BBC.
I've seen the stage play.
Yes, yeah. The film, they miscast Richard Burton. Number one, he's too old at that point in his career to be playing an angry young man. And so Jimmy in the film is just, because he's got that gravitas, because he's Richard Burton, it's not a young man just popping off and yelling. I actually, the first time I saw Look Back in Anger, was like, is this guy mentally ill? Because not only does he have the gravitas of age, but he's got the gravitas of Richard Burton. You're supposed to be taking uh, everything that he says with a grain of salt, because this is a young guy just popping off. He's angry about everything, blah, 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 blah. But when Richard Burton says it, it sounds like you're supposed to be impressed by it. And you're like, gosh, the people who made this are horrible people. And he's very verbally abusive to his wife. And uh, then the second film, Room at the Top, was probably a revelation when it first came out. But so many of the tropes that it invented have been adapted by TV soap operas, and Laurence Harvey's main character is basically a sexual predator, and we're supposed to be rooting for him, and that's just those aren't those, and and it's hard in modern parlance to get attached to him as a character, especially you are just like in this, where a part of you is supposed to be rooting for Archie. You're supposed to be rooting for Laurence Harvey in that film, and I just don't think a modern audience can. So that's why this is actually the earliest one. But we're going to do the next one Saturday night and Sunday
I
morning
love you for saying
next
that, by the
month.
way. That's something that bothers me a lot, and maybe it is a modern thing. Maybe it's just because women have a different stance now. But the the identification of people who were just shits, and you're supposed to root for them. They're the hero, and you're just like, oh God, you're so cringe. So I'm glad you said that. I know most men don't have that opinion, so thank you for that.
Well, I don't think that's a special opinion. I think any modern audience is going to interpret a film by what was going on at the time. But when it comes to identification with characters, the things that make a film watchable, there have to be some things that the audience can kind of latch on and pick up with, and a lot of the main characters in these kitchen sink dramas are absolute fucking shits. And in some cases, that makes the films unwatchable, and those are the ones we're not going to discuss here. In this case, in Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, in Alfie, in A Taste of Honey, they make them, the films are entertaining, and you find, despite the fact that they're absolute shits, that you're rooting for the characters, because whether the characters are redeemable or irredeemable, you there is something in them that you can identify, and I identify with Archie Rice in a way that I probably shouldn't admit to too much, because he is an absolute loser. But I do. I identify with Archie Rice in this, and if, on the other hand, you had Laurence Olivier giving a Richard Burton type performance in this with great gravitas and what have you, then no, we wouldn't be talking about this film either, because again, I would be like, well, why, this guy is an absolute shit. Why am I supposed to take his word for anything?
Well, that's why Olivier said this is the performance that transported him to the new wave, as opposed to keeping him trapped in the old way of acting, which is apparently what Burton did, which is what ruined the movie for you. Um, as for your relating to Archie Rice, I can't help pointing out when you were talking about the sad podcaster who has only 5 listeners, there were precisely 5 people in this room while you were saying that. So, um, you know, uh, I relate I mean, I was rooting for, as I was saying, I was rooting for
There
Archie
were
as
6
well.
when I said that. There were 6 in here when I said that.
No, I counted, there were 5. There were 5. I
and that
specifically counted.
and that's this is not, I was actually offered a chance to do this as a podcast with a sponsor, but I have that stutter, and he wanted me to edit
You
it
don't
myself,
have a
and I would have to.
stutter. You don't.
I
That's
do.
ridiculous.
I do. And that's one of the reasons I came on Clubhouse is to work on it. But I do. But
Well, then
anyway,
it succeeded because you don't
but
have one.
it the but all the ums and the lip smacks and the breaths and I'd have to buy a microphone and all of that, and I decided, nah. Yazzy's always wanting me to do that, like go over on Spotify and do this as a podcast, but I
It's
think I would
true.
have the exact I would have the exact same problem there as I do here. I think I don't
I
think I'd
didn't.
find an audience
I
there
didn't
either.
know you had any kind of. I didn't know you had any kind of stutter until you said you did, and then I was saying, "What are you talking about? It's in your head. It's not there." And if there's everybody has little things that they do, you can edit those out manually, and even
I'd
better
say
because
leave them in. It's those things that make you
I just don't
that make
want
you
to.
likable.
I I just don't want to, I
Got it.
guess.
But
But the other
it's
thing is,
like saying
if
it's like saying to
if
Jimmy it's like saying
if
Jimmy
500 or 600 people were listening, I would do it.
it would
If
say
I had like 500 or 600 people, I would do it. But for 6 people, no, too much work.
Well, let me ask you real quick.
well,
Hi, what is your opinion on? Both actually everybody in here, Les as well. What is your opinion on the family dynamic? The narcissistic
well,
drunkenness of Archie versus his daughter who can't move on with her life because she's got to take care of him. What do you think of the family dynamic in that?
Well, I just wanted to say to Eric first two other things. One is there is AI now that can clean up a recording miraculously in seconds.
I'd like that link
So
if you have it.
It's Adobe makes
Oh,
it.
okay.
It's Adobe something or other, and I think it's free.
FIMIXER. F as in Frank. IMIXER is the Adobe product. And yes, you're right. It's freeware.
And the other thing is, it's like saying, I mean, people literally said to Jimmy Stewart, "You can't have a career because you've got this weird speech affectation." And of course, that's what made his career to some extent. So I
Okay, well,
just think
let's not focus on. I was using the stutter as an example. It, um, if I can't build an audience here on Clubhouse, I don't see how where I only have 15 minutes into
I don't care. I
these
don't care
rooms.
about that. I
Yeah,
care about the way you
the
view
amount of
yourself.
work it would take to put a podcast together for 9, 10 people. I guess we
I,
technically over on Facebook we have another 31 people who listen to the Facebook replay, but
I don't
I
care
mean
about any of
that's
that.
that's not enough
I
to make it
just
worth it.
I
It's
don't
not going to be
care,
worth it.
Eric. I just want you to think of yourself
Plus,
as
I would miss you. Hi.
someone who's extremely articulate and is a pleasure to listen to always. And I just think you have a self-image that doesn't align with reality. Uh, you you sound fantastic. It's wonderful to hear you talk. And Hillary and Les and I we go out of our way to hear you talk every week. So twice a week in my case. So I just try to throw away this idea that you have some kind of speech impediment because it's ridiculous. Don't think of yourself that
Ah,
way.
well. All right, all right. Well, but just so you know, we're staying on Clubhouse for a while. We are going to be without Yazzie for a month. Apparently, she thinks it's more important to go to the south of Italy to make sure that a bunch of school age girls can actually go to school because they're being kept out of the public school system
That
there.
selfish
Uh, then
bitch.
then to talk about 40-year-old or 60-year-old films on Clubhouse. I know. I'm priorities, really.
So, in answer to your question, Hillary, I mean, the family dynamic is very purposely as dysfunctional as John Osborne could make it. I mean, I Eric and I both rooted for Archie, but I think in different ways. And I basically felt that um, I felt that there is something really magical about theater, about being on stage, connecting with an audience. And if someone is getting their juice from that, that's awesome. And and that's something that he should hold on to for dear life. So his family um, basically making him feel bad for who he is a really fucked up situation. So my feeling is he should get the fuck out of there and surround himself with people who appreciate him being himself and appreciating his having
Well,
a life in the arts.
and his brother is to in my view of the film kind of the villain of the piece with this offer of going to Canada and running a hotel. Why not help your brother succeed in what he wants to do?
I thought that was the
As
mistress's
opposed to
brother. Am I wrong?
no, that's it's supposed to be Archie's brother. Well, it was in the play. Well, no, you know what? The film kind of makes that vague, and I think it leaves it up because she keeps calling him his wife, her sister-in-law, even though. So so but in the play it's very clear that's actually Archie's brother and no, what's his father's name? That son, but the film doesn't make that as clear, and I'm not exactly sure why. But whomever he is, to me is the villain of the piece because he's willing to spend the money to bail Archie out of this, but only if Archie becomes what he wants him to become. And Archie says, "No, I'd rather go to jail." No, I'm not going to become your, you know, and his son, but the one played by Alan Bates, who up until that moment has idolized him, is now kind of, to me, when he decides to go to Canada with his uncle, just um, bailing out, and he's failed Archie at that point, which gives that last line of the film, you've been a great audience, a wonderful audience. Tell me where you're going tomorrow night. I'll come and see you. See, yeah, even more tragic to me, and the ending to this affects me even more, knowing that even the one son who actually looked up to him no longer does, but he still holds up on and he still keeps trying.
I don't see it as a
Uh,
bet- I don't see it as a betrayal of Archie. I think it's either a betrayal of himself or it's like he doesn't love he doesn't love the life the way Archie does, and that's fine. Let him go and pursue his own path. But the point is, to me, to be true to yourself. So, just as Archie should have gotten the hell out of that family, um, if his son isn't getting fulfilled by his relationship with Archie, then yeah, it's time for him to separate and find his own path. I'm for everybody finding their own path. As for that haunting line where he says, I'll come and see you, I took that to mean this is not a story about Archie Rice, this this character that you'll never meet, that is only in a movie. This is a story about you. I'm telling a story about you. Think long and hard about what happened in this movie because it's about all of you. That's
That's
what
a
I thought he
fascinating
meant.
take on it.
I thought
I
that's what he
I
meant
saw that
by come and see.
as a father talking to his daughter. That last line. That
Interesting.
I want to go rewatch it now with that thought in mind.
Yeah, it's open to many interpretations, and that's part of what makes it great.
I was raised by narcissists. One grandiose and one malignant, and my mother was very covert, and my father was very much like Archie's character. Everything had to do with the next sale. Everything had to do with what everybody had to be involved. Everything had to do with what he needed to do, what he wanted to do, and nobody else was allowed to have any sliver of their own identity. Which is why I left home at 16. And I felt for Jean's character so deeply in this, and I felt like that last part of it was directed at his way of saying, "Okay, I'm done with this chapter. It's your turn. Let's see where you're gonna go with this." So it's interesting because I took it a completely different way from both Eric and High. So that's really it's interesting that what
well,
we
and
all
that's
got
back,
from it.
It's
and
art.
that's backed up in the film too. And it's one of the Nigel Neal written scenes, not one of the John Osborne scenes. But when he's at the dinner with um, the Shirley Ann Fields, Tina, that was her character's name, parents trying to arrange for the money, and they mentioned that isn't there a soldier named Rice who's a prisoner who lives in this town, and he just kind of it says, "Oh yeah, I heard about that on the radio."
That's his son.
Yeah, Archie wants to be known. He wants to be famous. He wants to be the life of the party. You see him at the bar. He wants to be the center of attention, but only for the things that he does. He doesn't want to be remembered for, you know, for being the father of the prisoner of war. So he just says, "Oh yeah, I heard about and because that would take the spotlight off of Archie." Uh, Similarly. when his father offers to bail him out with the and this is made much more explicit in the play, but with coming out of retirement, Archie is kind of hesitant about that as an idea, and only resorts to it uh, uh, to keep himself basically out of prison after his father's kind of fenced him in, uh, so to speak. And again, because I don't think he wants to be remembered as his father's son, he wants to be remembered as Archie Rice. He wants the attention to be on him. So that, which is a very narcissistic personality trait.
Do you think that that was more because he wanted Tina to not see him as a person of that age, old enough to have the father, old enough to be the father of a prisoner of war, as well as him trying to keep the focus on himself?
And actually, yeah, that was my first interpretation of that scene, but there's something more to it because you can see he's emotionally affected by it in the scene between him and Tina in that cabana room where she's getting dressed and he's got to listen to the wireless, and you can see it on his face that this is deep, and he's putting that aside, you know, when it comes time to talk about it. Whereas, of course, if my son were a prisoner of war somewhere, yeah, all your fuckers are going to hear about because it'd be all I was thinking about. I mean, just 24/7. Whereas Archie has this way of compartmentalizing the people in his lives, you know, and redirecting everything back to himself. And it's part of what makes him a very flawed and fascinating character.
I just want to say, first of all, having a narcissist as a parent is like one of the worst things imaginable. And that, Hillary, you turned out so spectacularly amazing. God bless you. So it's
Thank you.
like,
No one's ever said that before, and thank you. Most people are just like, get over it. Thank you.
oh my goodness, you need to hang out with a better crowd of people.
I hang out with a
Uh,
lot of actors, a lot of narcissists.
but yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you're one of the
seriously.
best.
I mean,
You're
I
one of the best. If I could just finish, you're one of the best people I know. Clearly one of the very best people in Clubhouse, and anybody who knows you is blessed. So yeah, you just turned out super amazing, and that it came out of that circumstance is just mind-blowingly impressive.
well,
It's really
and
it's really an
go ahead, Les.
accomplishment to it's really an accomplishment to make your way and to have the courage to do that young, to, at 15.
And you did absolutely. I mean, you getting out of there was the exact right thing to do. That's really the only thing you can do if a narcissist is run. So kudos to you for your stellar instincts and for having the courage to act on them. As I've said to you before, you're one of the bravest people ever. Just amazingly courageous person, and a role model to me in that regard.
This is the most seen I have ever felt in my entire life, and I love you so much for it. I am literally close to tears. Thank you guys. Like, thank you. I'm usually like, do not like any kind of attention like this, but I tell you what, it's been a rough week, and this is the most validating thing I've ever probably heard. Thank you so much. But back to the movie. Damn, thank you so much.
But to another one of High's points about Archie's family kind of pissing on his dreams with the bankruptcy and constantly rubbing it in his face, he gives it as well as he gets it as well. You hear the way that he talks about his wife. Look at her, the old hag, drunk again. what have you, and the gaslighting techniques that he uses, and things like that. And it seems to me like that's just a poisonous family dynamic from the top down, you know. And and I wonder about how much responsibility Roger Livesey's father character uh, would take for that kind of poisonous dynamic, because of course he's in it day in and day out, and was that maybe the household that Archie was raised in?
That's a good thought, because narcissism is something that is absolutely a repeated. Uh, it's I don't know if it's genetic or learned behavior, but it is definitely something that is repeated in family dynamics over and over again. You know what I think would be hilarious, not hilarious, but a very psychologically interesting mashup to make in a remake of this would be to put what is Gypsy Rose Lee's mom, Rose in this from Gypsy, and to literally mesh those two dynamics together, have her be the somebody that he meets just in an alternate world, not like in a continuation of the stories, but in an alternate world. I would be fascinated to see those two characters and how they would interact with each other. Both of them are obsessed with vaudeville. Both of them think vaudeville is coming back. Both of them are delusional. Both of them are trying to involve the family and anyone else who they can in their schemes for vaudeville. I think it'd be an interesting mashup.
That's hilarious. I love that idea.
Hey, Donnie.
This with
Oh my
Jack
God, I'm
Lemmon
pushing all the wrong
in
buttons except for my
1976.
mic.
Hey, I want to
Hello,
welcome
hello.
Don Fields to
Hey,
the
Dawn,
stage.
wonderful to see you. Um,
Good to see
as
you.
always, I love your icon. Your
I know. I look forward to it every time I see the little hamsters. Guinea pigs. What did I say hamster? Guinea pigs. Sorry.
I have more, but I really like this one, so I'm sticking with it for a while.
I love it. I want to see the Little Mermaid with guinea pigs.
I had a bad connection there. Can people hear me now?
yes, we can hear you now. I just wanted to ask Dawn, how did your casting and film stuff go today?
Well, today was kind of like 6 people who couldn't make our bigger casting session earlier this week. And we were hoping for some last minute surprises. We didn't get that. However, we have 2 more scheduled at 3:00, and one of them has real potential. So we've been through hundreds and hundreds of auditions. We've read so many people for this role, but I always say it only takes the one.
Crossing fingers for you.
Yeah, if we don't find her today, we may have to go SAG, and I'm hesitant to go SAG unless we're going for a name, and I can't really put a name in this role, so I'm trying to avoid that. So, yep, I hate to say it, but a lot's riding on this one girl that's coming in at 3, so we shall see.
We're talking about The Entertainer and how they auditioned 500 actresses to find the actress who ended up having an affair with Archie Rice, because she had to be really good looking, because she placed second in a in a beauty competition in the movie. Um, yeah, sometimes it can take a while. I also remember that when William Friedkin took on The Exorcist, there were other directors who said, "You're crazy. You'll never find somebody to play the girl. Um, it's an impossible casting task." And he actually was tearing his hair out trying to find somebody. Then one day, Linda Blair and her mother just came in, and she was perfect. But it was like almost a gift from God. He was really worried that he wouldn't be able. He wasn't sure he was going to find somebody who could play that part at that age. So yeah, it's a part of the fun of making a movie is just kind of relying on Providence and the Lord to deliver the right performers for the right roles.
Yeah, and I will say the universe has been smiling on me today. It's been one of those days where just like the freakiest things are like going right. So I'm hoping that trend continues. But yeah,
Knock on wood, girl. Hold on to it.
right? Like this is a tough one because we're looking for an actress who's 18 to 24, who's non-union. So that's it's always tough. But she also has to be the believable little sister of our lead actress who is red-haired with blue eyes and fair skin. So we have a very specific thing that we're looking for, and this is for the lead role. It's just these two women are the only two characters in this whole feature film. And so she has to carry the film. She has to be young. She has to have little sister energy. She has to be able to, she has to have amazing chops as an actress. And she has to have screen presence, also be quirky, but yet vulnerable. And we really like her. It's all of those things. This has been a challenge.
So the answer is no. I can't have the part.
No,
I said
sorry,
the
you are
same
not the
thing,
father.
man.
but
I
if
I
well,
I was
maybe
so
with the
close. If
maybe with
I just that one thing. If I only had red hair. Damn it.
red hair and contact lenses, and maybe Dawn will reconsider.
I'm blue-eyed.
Excuse me, a red wig and contact lenses.
The thing about that is like, and just, when we're looking at the women who don't have the right hair color and the right eye color, it's tough because they've come a long way with wigs, but I can still pretty much spot them in a movie unless you pay a lot of money for a really good wig stylist and a really good quality wig.
Especially in the age of HD.
That's right. That's right. But eyes are even the more difficult because even though we've come a long way with contact lenses, they still can't get the pupils right. When like the hardest thing is if someone has brown eyes and you're trying to make them look blue or green or light colored. It's still something a little bit uncanny about it.
Yeah, that country song in the '70s lied to me about making brown eyes blue.
Harry. Dawn, check out Moxie, MOXIGIRL. That's where I get any of my performance contacts from, and they are fantastic. They are like many different colors. They are as realistic as you can get, and the pigmentation in them is perfect. And I've used them for a lot of horror movie type stuff, so they're really really good. I'll send you a picture of the box. They're
What is
really
it
affordable.
again? Moxie Eye? What is
Moxie
it?
Girl.
MoxieGirl.com?
I don't know what the website is because I buy them from the store location, but I'll take a picture of the box in a little bit and I'll send it to you. Leo, oh my God. Ghost from the past, how are you?
What's up? What's up? I'm chilling, driving to pick up my kids right now. Yeah, I decided to join Clubhouse again, and it's really, really different.
So this is a new account?
Yeah, it's a new account.
Let me add you real quick.
I found the website, Hillary. Thank you.
So now I have 7 people in here. In your face, Hi.
What are you talking about? Hi is your biggest cheerleader.
Yes, I tease and abuse those I love. It's my way.
Dawn, what about just using hair dye for the red hair? And what about hair dye?
The actress has to be willing to do that, and several actresses who've auditioned have said they are willing to do that. There's one girl that we are interested in who's very, very blonde, but she says she's been dying to go red with her hair. So she's a little older. She doesn't really have the little sister energy you want, but she was a fabulous actress and she really understood the material, and that goes a long way sometimes.
Y'all don't know Leo. Leo actually made a movie here on or with people from here on Clubhouse. Really united an entire community of people, and is just a great guy. Just a really good person. So I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with his work or not, but definitely follow him because he's just good people. Love him so much.
Thank you. Yeah, that was an amazing experience. I loved it.
I followed you, Leo.
All right, I'll follow you right back.
Me
I
too.
want to know what's going on with the Jesus. I left for a couple, for like a year or so, and now there's no rooms about movie making. So I saw this and I was like, all right, let me dive in here first, nose first. Wonder what happened.
This is a wonderful room about about well, no, I wouldn't say just British movies. Yeah, I guess it's
It's
films.
just about
Looking back
British
at movies.
movies. It's just about British movies. We stray off subject sometimes, but yes, yes, this is a British movie podcast. God damn
I I
it!
I
And
I
Dawn
thought
has
that
Dawn does
I
her
thought
room about filmmaking. It's just she was busy making a movie today, but Dawn usually has a room at 2 p.m. Eastern time on
Well,
Thursdays,
it's
and
1
and
p.m. tomorrow, isn't
she'll
it,
have
Don?
she'll have a room tomorrow because she had to skip today. So go come to Clubhouse tomorrow. Dawn's house is script to screen. It's one of the very best houses in Clubhouse. It's a must-have room, and so yeah, come tomorrow and people will be talking about making movies there.
Um, yeah, no, for sure. For some reason I can't follow or add you. I don't know what is the term, Don. But hopefully, yeah, I can get into that room tomorrow.
Oh, you're this Leo. I just clicked on your profile, and we know each other. We've known each other for a long time. Where you been?
I had to get off because I've been working on my feature film. I've been working on my pitch for my pilot. I've been just doing a lot of stuff. I'm gonna be premiering on February 16th and Life and Beth season 2 with Speak and Roll and all that good stuff. So I've been working hard. I'm exhausted.
Well, welcome back. It's very good to
That's
see you.
awesome. That's awesome, Leo.
Thank you. Good to be back. I just kind of want to bring all these rooms back that we used to have, all productive, man.
They've changed the format quite a lot in Clubhouse. So the some of the rooms are still here. They're just harder to find. There's also a Saturday we do Understanding Movies, which is a film room kind of like this, only it's not anchored around UK cinema the way this one is. That's every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I guess what on an LA time that would be what 11 a.m.
Okay, perfect. I think I'm gonna start the Latinx diverse filmmaking group again, and do some rooms just to see what the vibes at. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna join all of these other rooms as well.
Please, we need more rooms. And I don't know if you guys know, because I haven't really talked about it much, but if you click on the magnifying glass at the bottom and then up in the right, you'll see a globe icon. If you click on that globe icon, that'll tell you all the live rooms that are happening in that moment.
Yeah, they finally
Yeah,
did
but
that
they
after
hid the crap
all
out
these
of it,
months.
right? Like they really, you got to
Well, they
work
hid
to
the
find
crap
it.
out of it because it's glitchy as heck. You know, I don't know how many times I've clicked on it and the room ended 5 hours ago. You know,
Oh, really?
but I'll get a note. Yeah, but I'll get a notification on the top of my screen every time somebody wants to leave one of these little voicemail chats about their teenage lives or whatever. Never
Anyway,
mind.
it's a move in the
I'm
right direction. I mean,
I'm a
you
bitter
know, they
man at Clubhouse right now. I've had some issues with them
oh,
lately, and they don't
you
listen
don't
to
know
me.
you
Do
don't know how bitter
I,
Dawn
I,
and I have been. you're you're not you're not
so
misunderstanding.
perhaps I'm coming at this with
But
that's
they
all
are
I'm saying.
moving. They restored the friendship bar thing, and they've finally created a. They've hid it and made it like it's like a dirty secret, but they are providing a page for live rooms. So it moves in the right direction. I still haven't started my room back up, but I'm
But
starting to feel a little optimism.
one of the things that they tried is they tried to make it so that when I do the replays on Facebook, that people had to download the app to listen to to the replays. But one of the updates that they did got rid of that, thank God, because that, which is the only reason I started doing my Sunday rooms on the Kings and Queens of England, because that wasn't going to fly. And they would have to keep their phone open to listen to the replay.
Regarding what Eric was saying about Saturdays, Understanding Movies is at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And this Saturday, they're doing The Martian with Matt Damon. And yeah, so these are the two, this room and that room are the two movie discussion rooms that I go to. And I'm going to them because I'm writing stuff and I find these discussions helpful in terms of thinking about how movies are structured and um, put together, how scripts are put together. So that's where I've been. That's about the only rooms I've been going to until recently. I'm going to be making a deadline I've been working really hard at, and so I'm going to be starting to expand my room going soon. I'm planning on going to Dawn's room tomorrow, for example. But yeah, I've just been really busy with getting pages written. But things will hopefully normalize a little bit in the near future.
Hi, we've been missing you in the Sunday trailer rooms as well.
I've been missing going. I've just been too jammed up, and I'm in panic mode to like make deadlines for like something that I consider really important for my future career. But yeah, hopefully things will get a little more normal soon.
I haven't been going because they're opposite the Sunday night football game in my time zone. But once football season's over, I'll start going to the trailer rooms.
Oh, sweet.
I'm kind of the opposite with football. I didn't even know my home team was in the sports ball finale, whatever that's called, Super Bowl. So
San
and then
Francisco? You're in San
yeah,
Francisco, right, Les?
yeah, and I knew about the only reason I knew that about the other team was Taylor Swift. So I became a fan mostly because my granddaughter, pictured here,
I
she was
saw a
a
very
fan.
funny. I saw a very funny joke about that. A guy on Facebook, it's gone viral, and he said, I don't watch the NFL, so I'm not sure who this Taylor Swift guy is, but he sounds fast."
Absolutely great name. Uh, so I won't watch the Super Bowl, but I'll watch. Go to YouTube and watch the clips where they pan to her. And my suggestion, these Kansas City Chief fans, and they ended up they really want their team to win. And since Kansas City versus the same team, my team was in there last year, I just suggest that they just replay the same football game with brand new commercials, and that'll guarantee that the Kansas City Chief fans the outcome they desperately want.
Well, I'm going to start bringing this room to a close, but go ahead, Leo. I'm sorry, I didn't mean
No, I
to.
was just gonna say I just got here to pick up my daughter, so it was a pleasure meeting you guys, and I'll hopefully see you guys more often soon. It's
Love
good to
you,
see you,
miss you,
Hillary.
and really glad you're back, babe.
Hey, I'm back, and let's see if we can start this thing up
Let's
again.
do it.
Blessings,
Yeah,
everybody.
catch us next week. We're doing the Who's Quadrophenia, the film from 1979, starring Sting. Technically, he's not the star, but he's the one actor anybody would have heard of it. Anyway, I'm going to go with final thoughts on the entertainer. I'm going to start with Hillary, end with Hi, and then
I
do my programming notes, and then move
I
on.
think it is a beautiful look at a little sliver of Americana, where not Americana, I say Americana, a little sliver of theatrical history, because we are always evolving and moving forward, and we in that surge we tend to lose pieces of the past forever. And this is one man's hopeless grip on trying to hold on to that, at the expense of everything and everyone around him. And it's a life that afterwards you look back and think, what was it all for? Um, I again, I find parallels in Gypsy in that connotation right there. But I feel like this film, this stage play in particular, and this film had it was so dynamic. It was so layered. It was so much that there is a character that everyone on the face of the planet can identify with and relate to in a way that they can make it their own. So it is an important production to watch, to participate, not to participate in, but to watch, to see that these tropes, these types of people, these personalities don't change. There is every generation of every sector, there is always going to be these people in it somewhere, and we can find ourselves in that. And through that, and through film, we can resolve these character defects. We can become better people. We can see ourselves in a way that other people see us and we don't always see ourselves. And for that, and many other reasons, I think that this is a must on any film aficionado's uh list.
Thank you, Hillary. Hi, your final thoughts on the entertainer.
So I'm going to pick up on two things Eric said earlier. One is that a film can be of its time, and if it uh, doesn't age so well, that's okay because it served a vital purpose of its time. I think that's something maybe Look Back in Anger did. Um, so, and you know, so it's, and along similar lines, a film can be so influential that its tropes are used by so many other films and TV shows following it, then when you go back to the original, it feels kind of maybe unsurprising because so many people have copied it, and that's okay too. Um, it's you know it was an influential seminal work, and that's the way I feel to some extent about Children of Men. I was thinking about it after we talked about it. And one of the things that occurred to me is a lot of what's in Children of Men I saw later on in The Walking Dead, only done, more innovatively because they had more time to think about it. Um, but Children of Men, for its time, was, I don't think I gave it enough credit for how innovative it was at, in its time. But I think the fact that a lot of folks copied what it did makes it have less power to me as an original work, but that's not its fault. It's a credit to it for having an impact. So,
Pulp Fiction always hits me that way as a film like that. Where if I go rewatch Pulp Fiction, I'm like, God, I've seen this a million times now. But of course, it was new at the time.
so those are my thoughts. I except to say I'm grateful, Eric, that you picked this movie because, as Hillary says, it is a must see, and Olivier's performance is amazing, and also it gave me an excuse, which is one of the reasons I like this room. It gave me an excuse to do some research and watch Olivier talk about acting. Um, And that's one of the things that I like about, whatever movie we're doing, it gives me an excuse to go do some research about, the actor, the director, what have you. So it was great fun to watch numerous clips of Olivier. And by the way, there's a documentary called Laurence Olivier, A Life, and it's amazing. I didn't have time to watch the whole 2.5 hours, but what I watched was great, and I hope to someday go back and watch the whole thing. So I recommend that.
Yeah, I second that recommendation. I'm going to end with the words of Tony Richardson, who reflecting on this film in 1984, said it was the embodiment of a national mood. Archie was the future, the decline, the sourness, the ashes of old glory, and where Britain was heading. And to me, the fact that time and time again, it's people trying to escape Britain at this point. That his daughter is being asked to go to Africa. That his brother wants him to move to Canada. And there was a bit of a sense that after the Suez crisis of we're the last person to leave Britain, turn out the lights. That we have constituted ourselves for the last 200 years as an empire, and now that we're not as an empire, what are we? And I think this film makes that point without hammering it home by creating characters that are able to bring home what it was like to be in the decline of Britain. Now, next week's film, Quadrophenia, takes place a mere 5 years after this, and you're going to get an incredibly different view of England. Number one, it's not set in the north, it's set in the south. It's set in London and Brighton, so you're getting a different part of England. But number two, the intervening 5 years saw an economic boom where everyone was going around England at the time going, "You've never had it so good." And that goes to the point of films being a moment in time. And I would also like to reflect that the opening line of this that Olivier says, "Why should I care?" is also the opening line of Quadrophenia and is repeated all the way through it. And while you're watching Quadrophenia, I ask you to kind of look at other things that maybe influenced Quadrophenia from this film. And uh, not this isn't homework or anything like that, but it is going to make for a much more interesting conversation if we can kind of tie these two films together as two reflections of England during this uh, time period between 1955 and 1966, when England was going through so many changes. But that's next week for Quadrophenia. As far as this room goes, I'm sorry, Les. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, England. Well, two things. One is that South England was probably more prosperous than the North. Um, so that's another thing that makes it more a different view, I would think. Um, and the other thing is, I think is interesting about the idea, all these rock people that came out of England, Rolling Stones, Beatles, etc., etc., the British invasion. The funny thing about that is they took Black American music and brought it to America.
Yep, they re-imported it. And it's interesting also, the 1960s, if you look on the BFI's list of the 100 best British films ever made, is the number one decade by far with 33 films, which, by the way, Tony Richardson, the director of this film, is second only to David Lean because he has 5 films on that list. But by 1974, England only was producing 30 films a year. and the English film industry fell on such hard times that it wouldn't come back again until the 80s under David Putnam, and people were asking the same question I ask all the time now: is does Britain have a film industry? And so when you see these kind of ups and downs, you have to remember that even now, where people are saying, is Britain just making films for television? Do they really have a film industry? Even though I saw more good British films this year than I saw probably in the entire decade of the '80s, which is considered their kind of golden era. Um, it always rises from the ashes. And maybe what we saw this year with films like Saltburn, The Old Oak, etc. Is that happening again in England? But we'll see you all next week for Quadrophenia. Any final thoughts before I close the room?
I just want to thank you for doing the room, and Les and Hillary for being here, and everyone else for being here. Hillary, it's always an extra special treat to see you. No pressure, but just know when you are here. It makes us all very happy.
And,
I
and
love you
I,
so
I,
much.
I just
Thank
want to
you.
I just want to reassure everyone that even though my rooms are getting smaller and smaller turnouts, I'm going to continue doing them until Clubhouse kicks me out. Quite
Thank you.
honestly,
I
because this is the
appreciate that. A
highlight of
lot of
my
people
week.
are giving up on us, so thank you for not.
I'm not gonna. I'm not. I have no intention whatsoever. I don't care as long. If I'm in here by myself, that room's gonna be closed, and I'll reschedule it. Quite honestly, but if it's me and someone else talking about a British film, we're gonna be doing this every Thursday. The time may change, things may change, and maybe maybe it'll be a different day. Who knows? You know, as far as scheduling goes, but there's going to always be a weekly UK cinema history. I know I got frustrated by the glitch when I had to go over to Twitter, and I know I said something to the effect that I wouldn't piss on Clubhouse if it were on fire. But no, they can't fire me. I'm not quitting. They're going to have to fire me. They will have to literally close this place around me before I stop making these rooms. And on that note, we're going to end this again. Catch us next week, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The film is Quadrophenia. It's streaming pretty much everywhere. So have a great one.
Thank you again for listening to UK Cinema History. If you want to join the conversation, follow the link in the episode description. Every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we record these episodes live on the Clubhouse app. Hope to see you there. And while you're listening, please rate us and review us on your favorite podcaster. It'd be doing us a great favor. And thanks again.